And while this event starts an hour late, what is 1 hour compared to the delay of the ICANN nTLD program? So I think we can all forgive. And actually, nTLDs will be part of the presentation today because I'm here to celebrate a decade of growth. And that growth, that's us as an industry. Look at this slide. Isn't it amazing? This is 2013, the year in which Team Internet, then still called CentralLink, IPO'd, when there were 250 million domain names. And today, there's already more than 370 million. So that's 120 million additional domain names. That is 10 million each and every year for 12 years straight. Isn't that awesome? So when we explore what has been driving this growth, the new top-level domains that I just referred to have driven almost half the growth, let's say around at 40% to not exaggerate. And that's despite the fact that the first delegation was only in at the end of 2013, almost 1.5 years after the application window in 2012 had closed. We've also seen some growth, I think mostly in monetary value from quasi-generic top-level domains. What do I understand under quasi-generic top-level domains? It's the likes of .ai, originally the island of Anguilla, but today artificial intelligence, IO for the British Indian Ocean territories, CO for Colombia, country codes that are just very well suited to work as a generic top-level domain. While the numbers are quite modest, these domain names also sell at very good prices, and therefore for the industry in terms of revenue generator, they are quite important. The rest of the ccTLDs was actually not driving much more growth than these few quasi-generics, which is just a handful of strings. And then last but not least, of course, also the rest of the classical gTLDs has shown some growth. Down here, almost half of the growth in the last 12 years was coming from .com, net, info, and others. But they had a 30-year head start. So .com was established in 1983. The first nTLD, as I said, was delegated in 2013, 30 years later. So the catch-up that we've been seeing from new top-level domains is quite amazing, I believe. How is the market structured today? In 2012, more than 800 organizations ventured out with the appetite to change the internet. And however, the concentration is quite high. So the top 10 nTLD registries actually concentrate 90% of all nTLD registrations on them. So starting with Redix, XYZ, and down to Aruba with .cloud top-level domain. I think that is something that people have not necessarily foreseen, that this concentration would be so strong in this industry. And I'm proud to say that quite a few of these are customers of Team Internet Group. And I think this has been a very symbiotic relationship where they've helped growing us and we also helped growing them. What are some other changes that have occurred? So in 2012, there were a lot of convictions out there in the market. One of them was that too many top-level domains will actually confuse customers. I think that's not really the case. Guardrails that have been put into place, like the TMCH, or simply the fact that today web navigation largely happens through search engines, have helped that people could actually work with in a world where you have literally more than 1,000 top-level domains out there. Another strong belief was that you just need the right top-level domain with the right keyword, and SEO success is yours. But that hasn't held true. Today, we see that content is king. if you don't abide by Google's rules, your search engine visibility will be zero, even if you're the greatest domain name out there. And there were a few visionaries out there who expected that very early on. I still remember the Domain Fest 2014 in Los Angeles, when Dan Negari, the owner of .xyz, came on stage. And he said, look guys, you all know me for .college, but I will tell you my biggest success will be .xyz, or XYZ because he's American. And I will tell you why, because it is the most generic name you could think of. And you could literally see the jaws drop in the room. You could hear a pin fall to the floor. And but ultimately, today, with more than 6 million domains under management, only for .xyz, he has made it the #1 in the market. So respect to our friend and also customer, Dan Negari, for having gotten here. We already spoke about the concentration. So just going out there and putting your top of the domain out there doesn't help you at all. I think there's a lot of great strings that have not had a lot of commercial success and are now maybe having 1,000 registrations. And some others, strings that maybe people have laughed at, have made it into really big volumes. As a matter of fact, the top 1% of all nTLD strings combine 60% of all domain registrations. And my message here is, just like in any other business, it's not only about strategy. It's first and foremost about execution. And here just some people have been very, very good at taking the asset and exploiting it to the max for commercial success. And well, the last thesis was a lot of the brands have been registered back then in 2012, or applied for, I should rather say. A lot of them have actually stopped existing, which I think is a pity. I think there is still a very strong case for .brands or for brands or for top domains for organizations. If I would, for example, be a football manager, I would, for example, go for .FIFA and just create a safe space where I can create websites for all official football clubs, so that cyber squatters would actually be outside the tent. But we still have a few months in order to convince a few of these organizations that new top domains are actually a great idea if you have a global brand. We spoke about the concentration in the market, and but we see that different models have actually worked out and have, so there is no single way to success. And I'm using Identity Digital, at that time still Donuts, and XYZ as the two examples. The Identity Digital has applied or has received 264 nTLDs, so that's the broadest portfolio in the world. Whereas XYZ, after a few acquisitions, is now limited to still limited to 35 top-level domains, so much more concentrated. Still, one other big difference is Identity Digital is actually choosing to insource, so they operate their top-level domains themselves. However, XYZ has outsourced the operations to Team Internet and has still delivered the same numbers. So outsourcing is a viable way to grow and build a world-leading nTLD business. The top domains of Identity Digital are very much living off selling few very good second-level domains. So of course today you can sell Bitcoin and AI under every single top-level domain. Probably there's also AI.pizza. I haven't checked that, but I would be surprised if some keywords are not registered under simply every top-level domain in the world. Whereas XYZ has more focus on really marketing the string, driving it to millions of registrations. Both strategies work. And well, both have made it under the top players globally. So again, just to show there's many ways to get there. The most important thing is have a proper strategy, and even more importantly, solid execution. And that is what builds successful businesses, not only in nTLDs, but generally. I will not read out this entire slide, but we've actually done some work to compare what are all the changes between the 2012 and the 2026 round. So there's quite many. I personally believe that the restrictions on private resolutions is probably the most significant change in the rules. Private resolutions have made fortunes for some applicants in the past, which, if repeated, might indeed create some false incentives to just throw out applications there in the hope that you will be bought out at the end of the day. However, the current stance of pretty much banning them also doesn't seem right. I think there must simply be a mechanism where it's allowed that several people have the same great idea and have an amicable way to basically figure out how to proceed and how to delegate that name to the right party, or maybe a consortium of parties to then operate the string. Just like, for example, for our recent Win4.co, we also partnered up with another company. Sometimes it's better to share success rather than fighting about who might own a certain asset. I think for the rest, the slightly higher application fee, 227,000 compared to 185,000. That's just average inflation rate for the last 12 years, so no big shocker here. But the private resolution thing is the one thing that I'm the most precious about, and I would really love to see what the final take of ICANN will be on this. When we think about the next round, we've now compared basically the hypotheses that were made in 2012 and how well they aged until 2025. But today, not only top-level domains have aged, the entire internet has aged. When the application window opened in 2012, you were still buying iPhone 4. Now we're at iPhone 16, so quite a lot of things have happened. So we've been going from smartphones still being experimental, being for hipsters. Now pretty much every kid has a smartphone in their pocket. We're now seeing AI assistants coming up. Search is even much more dominant than it was back then. We've moved to a cloud-native environment with software as a service providers. Trust and brand identity are super important. I think today the awareness for the importance of cybersecurity and online identity are at an all-time high. And we will later also hear some speeches about digital identity, cybersecurity, and how important all of that is. And what we also know is domains still 12 years later are still the basis of the digital infrastructure. This is still where you host your website. This is from where you send your email. Your email then again is your login into all these different software as a service packages that you have. So I'm without doubt that domain names are still going to be around for a very, very long time. However, let me postulate a few hypotheses. What could change now in the second round? I think one of my convictions is when making a strategy for the second nTLD round, it's important to think about quality over quantity. We have seen a few good successes who have basically built around sheer volumes, XYZ, .top, probably Radix as a whole, short dot, who also had 6 million domains under .icu at some point in time. But the market for this is of course limited. There can't be 100 people out there who try to just run by volume, getting into the millions of top-level domains. And my conviction is that the stronger business case will actually be having great top-level domains that resonate very well with, that are quite generic, just like Dan Negari already knew it 13 years ago, that just resonate very well with any kind of second-level, top-level domain to just sell high-value keywords under a relatively generic top-level domain. So this is where I think there's a lot of value is. That's basically how Identity Digital is making their fantastic profits that they generate. And I think we will see more of that. I've basically coined this as, rather than selling millions of random domain names for quarters, selling thousands of quality names for Benjamins for $100 bills. And I think that's my conviction where the market is going to trend towards. The second hypothesis is about AI and in particular voice. Who of you has already used the latest voice chat function of ChatGPT? Yeah, and if you haven't done it, it's just this it's quite prominent, but no one clicks on it. It's basically next to the microphone icon in ChatGPT. Then it really talks to you like a human, like a proper human being. You could basically have it on your hands-free in your car, and you could talk to it for 3 hours straight. I think what Amazon failed to do with Alexa, because sorry to say, Alexa, compared to ChatGPT, you appear pretty stupid. But I think that new devices can come out that are using this new technology to build to finally make voice search and voice interaction with the internet actually happen. So we now have the technology for the first time in humankind. And what does this mean? What does this mean for top-level domains? One of the probably greatest ideas in the first round, .xyz on voice, is just not that great anymore because suddenly you have 8 characters and two dashes in it, whereas a .top, which also is just as great on a keyboard, on voice is completely superior as a top-level domain, because in any kind of country you would always pronounce it correctly as .top, whether you're English, American, German, French, whereas for XYZ, it's then, again, even the Americans and British are not aligned, whether it's XYZ or XYZ, XYZ, XY, Z. I think people would do well to consider this as a factor when choosing the top domains in the future, because I believe that voice will be an important interface, not the exclusive interface, but it will have a market share. And of course, agents will also be out there and must be easily identified. So just as a few ideas for the next round. And then thinking about the globe. Yes, we have IDNs. We have IDN top-level domains, but they're still quite concentrated on a few languages. So you see mostly the only ones that have notable pickup in terms of domains under management are basically in Mandarin, Arab, and and Cyrillic. That's right. I think it's a bit of pity. I think there should be more of it. Maybe even voice helps in that, given that voice will be a bit more immune to these sometimes awkward mechanisms with which you have to type in IDN characters on your phone. So again, my conviction is we should see more IDN top-level domains in the next round, because I think one of the barriers to entry, or one of the barriers to adoption of IDN top-level domains and also second-level domains could go away with a voice entry on your digital devices. That's basically the 3 hypotheses that I want to share with you today. Just like with the hypotheses that were spelled out back in 2012, on which many people have bet millions and millions of dollars. We will also see how well these statements age. I'll remind me of it in 2040 or so. But I already said it, domains are going to stay foundational. I just today see no technology that really puts domains out of the game. Domains have survived search engines, they have survived social media, they have survived the Bitcoin, they've survived COVID, the subprime crisis. Basically, domain names are pretty much indestructible. And that's why it's great to be in this industry. Quality, I'll maybe go to the other side. Quality, I also said it, I think quality will be key. And there's still a lot of great top-level domains out there that you could generate. Just imagine that. Let's do a numbers game. Who knows how many 3-character top-level domains there could be? Well, any guesses? That's smart. And 26 cube is 17,576. And out of these, including the legacy nTLDs like for example .org and .biz, only 81 of them have ever been registered. So there's still almost 17,500 3-letter combination still left, which means there is enough space for creativity. The canvas is still completely white. A lot of space for new ideas. Yeah, let's prepare for the next wave. Team Internet is here to help you with your ambitions, to turn your aspirations into reality. And so the operators now need to focus on execution. We only have 7 months, at least we all hope, until the window actually opens. Let's get ready. There's a lot of work to be done. Let's speak to the brands. We, of course, think about domain names every single day because that's what we love. But not every large corporate out there will think about top-level domains every single day. So it's our mission to go there as missionaries and basically tell them the story, why it's a great idea to have a .brand. The policies makers now need to go on the final stretch, the last mile, to set the right policies. Well, and then the investors. Identity Digital, even though Paul Zerura had some money that he put into the venture, they were actually quite successful in raising fresh money. So there is an investment case. I think everyone who has believed in donuts and their strategy at that time has made very good money on the back of it. So there's a great case, and I hope that everyone who has an aspiration to start a new nTLD business will also find the funding and the right technical partner to actually turn the aspiration into reality. Thank you all.
Thank you, Michael. Wonderful to have you once again as our keynote intro speaker. We're so grateful to Team Internet.
Thank you for having me.
I can almost reach.
Should I'll come downstairs. I'll feel awkward.
Thank you, Michael. Yeah.
Any questions?